Existence versus death. All right, so we're going to get into some really, really feel good kinds of things here. This starts to get a little bit heavy, but it is very, very valuable. So, existence versus death. So, death and life exist simultaneously. If you're alive, then you are moving toward death. Okay? Death is a reality and it's a source of anxiety. We all have an anxiety around our death. There's no way to avoid that. But it really hits us very strongly because we know that it's a reality. Confronting and dealing with death is a mechanism for change. So existential uses one's approaching death, even if you're healthy, even if have not been given so many months to live, we're still in the act of dying, and so how do you want to use this time? Do you want to use it as a time to beg for more time, or do you want to soak up all that life has? Tim McGraw's song "Live Like You Are Dying" is a really great one to go and kind of immerse yourself in this. The purpose of facing death is to experience life more deeply, to live in the present. And so, if you accept that life is short, if you accept that there's an end to life, then you're freed from it. It's always here where I talk about my law enforcement background. I went through 3 months of training for law enforcement in Grand Island, Nebraska. And the first activity that they had us do when we arrived there was to write our own obituary. And so, as we're sitting there with a blank sheet of paper, with all those nerves, and with a pen, and we're writing our obituary, we're answering questions about, do we want to be buried in our uniform or in a suit? So it's twofold for them. The first part of it is that by the end of that experience, probably 5 or 6 people of 100 of us got up and walked away, packed their bags and left. And so it's kind of a weeding out process. But the other thing about it is, once you accept that death is coming, then you get to determine how you go. No, I want to rephrase that. You get to determine how you go out. And so, is that in defense of other people? Is that in attempting to save lives? Or is it in, I don't know, the comfort of your own home because you're so worried about leaving the house for what might happen? And so you get to make a conscious decision of the manner in which you go out. And so then it sort of frees you up to not be so scared and intimidated and overwhelmed in life-threatening situations. So that's the other purpose of it. Part of healthy living is learning to balance the awareness of death with resources which allow the person to not be overwhelmed by it. And so this is where family, this is where faith, this is where all kinds of things can come in the secret to life is moderation. The secret to life is balance, and this is no different. So the more a person is able to find this balance, the better they'll be able to live a genuine and fulfilling life. Death and choices. So I want you just to think about this for a minute. How would your life and relationships be different if you knew that your loved ones were going to live forever? So if you knew that the people you loved were going to live forever, how would you treat them compared to now? And I think that's a kind of a powerful thought. And so, without the end coming, without them soon one day dying, or you one day dying, would you watch TV more? Would you spend more time by yourself? There would be no motivation to create meaningful kinds of things right now, and so you'd probably take a lot of things for granted, and that's this last point, that death gives significance to living. So the more we talk about death, the more that we're simultaneously aware of using this valuable time. Isolation versus connection. As I mentioned, we're in the really feel-good parts of today's discussion. So, isolation versus connection. Every person is essentially alone. So we are born alone, we're going to die alone. Helpful, that's uplifting. We can't depend on anyone else for our own confirmation. We alone must bring sense of meaning to our lives. And so what this is saying is we were born alone, we're going to die alone. Do not depend on other people for validation. Do not depend on other people for kindness and to give things to you. Make choices, go out and get them yourself, kind of thing. So we're unable to ever fully overcome our isolation as part of being a human. An inability to accept this can lead to neurotic and dependent relational problems. Through acknowledging this, once we acknowledge this, we're free to relate with people on a deeper level. And so relationships are the deepest and most profound source of meaning for our lives. And so this is, again, more of that paradox that the more we understand our isolation, the more simultaneously we are connected to other people. And so we don't like that sense of isolation. We don't want that. And so we go and we build meaningful relationships. And so that's what